Back in the 80s, only a few rap groups shook the hip-hop world, but none hit harder than N.W.A, a raw, fearless voice straight out of Compton that changed the music scene forever. Everyone knows the big names: Ice Cube, the storyteller with words that cut deep; Dr. Dre, the genius behind the beats; and Eazy-E, the hustler with a vision. But behind all that noise stood the quiet force of the group, MC Ren, the man they called the villain. Ren wasn't the loudest, but his pen was powerful. He wrote many of the rhymes that made N.W.A legendary and held things together even when fame, money, and ego started to tear the group apart. Here are the top 6 artists and figures MC Ren disliked the most. Starting at number 6, we have Jerry Heller. To accurately tell the story of his conflicts with Jerry Heller, it's essential to explain the context of how the N.W.A relationship formed and eventually fractured within the group. Every great tragedy has a catalyst, an inciting incident that sets in motion an unstoppable chain of events. For N.W.A, that catalyst was Jerry Heller. A seasoned music industry veteran, Heller partnered with Eric Eazy-E Wright in 1987 to co-found Ruthless Records, the label that would launch N.W.A into the stratosphere. Heller's experience was indispensable. He brought a level of professional legitimacy and industry connection that transformed Eazy's street earnings into a formidable music empire, securing major label distribution and navigating the firestorm of controversy that followed the group's rise. He helped build the machine, but according to the members who would eventually leave it, he also engineered its destruction. The central conflict revolved around finances and a management style that sowed deep seeds of distrust. Dr. Dre would later characterize Heller's approach as a divide-and-conquer game. He recalled how Heller singled out Eazy-E, ensuring the group's frontman and label co-owner was well taken care of, which in turn made Eazy dismissive of the other's concerns. "He picked Eazy to handle it," Dre explained, "and Eazy was like, 'I'm taken care of, Sofid.'" This strategy didn't just create a financial disparity, it fractured the group's internal unity, pitting brother against brother and replacing a creative partnership with a corporate hierarchy. The foundation of trust that had bonded the young men from Compton began to crumble under the weight of business arrangements they felt were deliberately opaque and unfair. This sense of being exploited was rooted in the contracts they were asked to sign. Ice Cube, the group's primary lyricist, was the first to openly rebel. He recounted how his publicist at the time, Pat Charbonnet, warned him to have a lawyer review his paperwork to make sure everything is straight. After multiple attempts to see his contract were stonewalled, the situation came to a head at a hotel in Phoenix, Arizona. Faced with pressure to sign a document he hadn't been allowed to properly review, Cube made a fateful decision. He once stated, "I said, I can't sign the contract, because I don't know what's in it." That refusal marked the beginning of the end of the original N.W.A lineup. Other members shared similar stories of financial confusion. DJ Yella described a bizarre incident where Heller presented him with a check for $93,000, a seemingly massive payday for the young artist. However, Heller immediately directed him to an accountant who informed Yella that the entire amount was owed for taxes. Young and inexperienced in the complexities of finance, Yella handed over the check, leaving him with nothing and the distinct feeling that he had been cleverly swindled out of his earnings. For his part, MC Ren felt the same sting of inequality, later noting the stark contrast between the group members living in modest apartments while their manager resided in a mansion. Throughout the years, Jerry Heller vehemently denied all accusations of financial mismanagement. In his 2006 memoir, Ruthless, he argued that the royalty splits were standard for the industry and that the group's members, particularly Ice Cube, were simply naive about the realities of the music business. He dismissed the claims as a failure to understand mathematics, pure and simple, not a conspiracy to defraud the artists. However, his defense did little to change the perception held by the group. Unhappy with his portrayal in the 2015 biopic Straight Outta Compton, where he was played by Paul Giamatti, Heller filed a defamation lawsuit against the film's producers, a battle he would fight until his death in 2016. Ultimately, the conflict with Heller was more than a simple dispute over money. It represented a fundamental clash of worlds: the street-level ethos of loyalty and brotherhood that N.W.A was built on versus the cold, contractual logic of the music industry. Heller's business practices created the original sin from which all of the group's subsequent feuds would grow. By destroying the trust that held N.W.A together, he made their implosion not just possible, but inevitable. Next on the list is Ice Cube. If Jerry Heller's management created the cracks in N.W.A.'s foundation, Ice Cube's departure was the first seismic tremor that proved the structure was unstable. As the lyrical engine of the group, Cube had penned a staggering amount of their most iconic material, including nearly half of Straight Outta Compton and a large portion of Eazy-E's solo debut. Feeling that his compensation did not reflect his monumental contribution, he confronted Heller and Eazy, only to be rebuffed. In December 1989, he made the high-stakes decision to walk away from the most successful rap group in the world and bet on himself. The fallout from that decision would ignite one of the most legendary and brutal beefs in hip-hop history. The remaining members of N.W.A. did not take what they perceived as a betrayal lying down. On their 1990 EP, 100 Miles and Runnin', they fired the first public shots. The record was littered with insults aimed at their former lyricist, branding him a coward and a traitor. On the title track, Dr. Dre delivered a pointed jab. It started with 5, but one couldn't take it. So now there's 4, cause the 5th couldn't make it. MC Ren, still loyal to the group, joined the assault on the song Real Niggas, rapping, "Only reason niggas pick up your record is cause they thought it was us." They were attempting to control the narrative, painting Cube as someone who had abandoned his brothers when the pressure got too high. After a few preliminary disses on his own EP, Kill It Will, Ice Cube responded with overwhelming force. On his 1991 masterpiece, Death Certificate, he unleashed No Vaseline, a track so vicious, so personal, and so surgically precise in its attacks that it is still considered the gold standard of diss tracks. Over a blistering, funk-driven beat, Cube systematically dismantled his former group, one member at a time. But his most potent venom was reserved for Eazy-E and Jerry Heller. He famously accused Heller of breaking up the group for financial gain, rapping, "It's a case of divide and conquer, cause you let a Jew break up my crew." He then turned his sights on Eazy's relationship with Heller, delivering the chilling lines, "Heard you both got the same bank account. Dumb nigga, what you thinking about? Get rid of that devil real simple. Put a bullet in his temple." The song's title and its homophobic lyrics were designed for maximum shock value, intended to humiliate and emasculate the men he once called his friends. The impact was immediate and devastating. No Vaseline was more than just a collection of insults. It was a public indictment of Ruthless Records' business practices. By laying out his financial grievances so plainly, Cube shifted the public perception of his departure. He was no longer the disloyal one. He was the whistleblower who had exposed the corruption at the heart of the group. The diss was so effective that N.W.A. never recorded an official response. MC Ren would later explain that the track landed at a time when the group was already beginning to fracture again. By the time they could have mounted a counterattack, Dr. Dre was on his way out the door, and the internal will to fight back had evaporated. In this war of words, MC Ren's role was complex. He had stood with his group and participated in the initial attacks on Cube, but his subsequent silence spoke volumes. To defend N.W.A. after No Vaseline would have meant defending the very financial structure that he too felt was unjust. Caught between his loyalty to the group and the undeniable truth in Cube's accusations, Ren chose not to engage further. At number 3, we have Dr. Dre. With Ice Cube gone and his solo career exploding, the remaining members of N.W.A. proved they could still succeed, releasing the chart-topping album Niggas for Life in 1991. But the victory was short-lived. The same suspicions about Jerry Heller's financial management that had driven Cube away were now festering in the mind of the group's sonic architect, Dr. Dre. His departure would be the final, fatal blow to N.W.A., triggering a new, even more personal beef that would define West Coast hip-hop for the next several years. Dre's exit strategy came in the form of Marion Suge Knight, a formidable and intimidating figure who offered a way out of Dre's contract with Ruthless Records. The departure was not amicable. It was alleged that Knight and his associates used strong-arm tactics and intimidation to coerce Eazy-E into signing away the contracts for Dr. Dre, singer Michelle, and rapper The D.O.C. This act escalated the conflict beyond the realm of lyrical battles and lawsuits. It introduced a tangible element of physical danger, transforming an internal business dispute into a street-level rivalry. With his freedom secured, Dre partnered with Knight to launch Death Row Records, a label that would soon become a dominant and feared force in the music industry. In 1992, Dr. Dre released his solo debut, The Chronic, an album that not only revolutionized the sound of hip-hop with its G-Funk production, but also served as a formal declaration of war against his former partner. The album's lead single, with Dre Day, and Everybody's Celebratin', was a direct and deeply personal assault on Eazy-E. The song's lyrics were merciless, but the accompanying music video was even more humiliating. It featured an actor, Anthony Johnson, playing a caricature named Sleazy-E, who was depicted as a desperate, jerry-curled sellout frantically searching for money. Dre's new protege, Snoop Doggy Dogg, also joined the attack, delivering verses that solidified the beef as a full-blown death row versus ruthless conflict. As this new war raged, MC Ren found himself in a precarious position. He was still signed to Ruthless Records, the last of the group's major talents remaining alongside Eazy-E. Eazy, embroiled in a bitter feud with Dre, wanted to keep the N.W.A. name alive and planned to record a new album with different producers. Ren, however, refused to participate. In a pivotal moment of artistic integrity, he told Eazy that the idea was doomed to fail. He understood that the group's essence was tied to Dre's revolutionary production, and a version of N.W.A. without its signature sound would be an inauthentic imitation. Eazy-E is number 2 on MC Ren's hate list. MC Ren's relationship with Eazy-E was the most complex of all his N.W.A. entanglements. It was not a straightforward feud defined by diss tracks and public insults, but a deep, fractured brotherhood tested by business, loyalty, and principle. Ren was Eazy's childhood friend and his most steadfast ally, the last man standing at Ruthless Records after the departures of Ice Cube and Dr. Dre. Yet he was also the one who stood up to Eazy on a matter of artistic principle, leading to a painful estrangement that was only healed by the looming shadow of tragedy. After the group's final dissolution in 1991, Ren remained signed to Ruthless, a powerful demonstration of his allegiance to Eazy. He continued to release music through the label, including his successful 1992 EP, Kiss My Black Ass, and his 1993 album, Shock of the Hour. Even after Eazy's death, Ren stayed with Ruthless to fulfill his contractual obligations, a move that underscored his deep-seated sense of loyalty. As one observer noted, he was a testament of loyalty to Eazy. However, that loyalty was not absolute. The breaking point came during Eazy's all-out war with Dr. Dre and Death Row Records. When Ren refused to participate in a new N.W.A. album without Dre's production, he chose the group's artistic legacy over blind allegiance to its leader. This decision created a deep rift between the two friends. In a later interview, Ren revealed the severity of the fallout. "Me and him didn't talk for like a year or two, probably longer than that. For that period, 2 of the core architects of N.W.A. were completely estranged, a direct consequence of Ren's refusal to compromise his artistic standards. While Ren remained on the sidelines, Eazy-E launched his own ferocious counterattack. On his 1993 EP, It's On, Dr. Dre, 187 Killa, he released the track Real Motherfucking G's, a scathing rebuttal to Dre Day. The song and its video famously mocked Dre's past as a member of the electro-funk group World Class Wreckin' Crew, featuring photos of him wearing sequined outfits and makeup. Eazy effectively flipped the script, branding Dre and Snoop as studio gangsters while reasserting his own street credibility. The painful silence between Ren and Eazy finally ended in 1994. The two reconciled and entered the studio together one last time to record the duet "Tha Mutha-Fucking Real." The track, co-produced by Ren and DJ Yella, was a powerful reunion, a return to the classic Ruthless sound. Tragically, this reconciliation was short-lived. Just months after they recorded the song, Eazy-E was diagnosed with AIDS. He died on March 26, 1995, at the age of 30. Eazy's sudden death was a profound shock that reverberated throughout the hip-hop community, and it served as the ultimate catalyst for peace among the surviving members of N.W.A. The years of bitter rivalry, diss tracks, and business disputes suddenly seemed insignificant in the face of such a devastating loss. In his final days, Eazy made peace with his former friends, and his passing forced them all to reevaluate their history. Another group of people MC Ren has openly expressed frustration toward are the producers of the 2015 film Straight Outta Compton. 2 decades after the breakup of N.W.A., MC Ren found himself in a new and unexpected battle, this time not over royalties or creative differences, but over the very narrative of his own history. The 2015 release of the N.W.A. biopic Straight Outta Compton was a massive cultural event, but for Ren, it became a source of profound frustration. He launched a public and vocal feud with the film's producers, accusing them of minimizing his role and rewriting history for the sake of a more streamlined, Hollywood-friendly story. Ren's anger first ignited over the film's marketing campaign. He noticed that the promotional trailers focused almost exclusively on Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and Eazy-E, while he and DJ Yellow were conspicuously absent. He took to Twitter to voice his displeasure in a series of furious posts. He wrote, "Man FK these BS at Universal Pictures, leaving me out the movie trailers, trying to rewrite history. When you have BS, work on a hip-hop film that don't know saint about hip-hop, this is what happens." This was not just a complaint about marketing. It was an accusation that the filmmakers were deliberately erasing his contributions. When the film was released, Ren's fears were realized. His character, played by Aldous Hodge, was portrayed as a secondary figure, a loyal associate, rather than a core creative partner. Critics and fans alike noted that Ren and Yellow were relegated to the background, with the narrative heavily centered on the more dramatic and commercially successful stories of the other three members. Ren again took to social media to defend his legacy. He tweeted, "True fans know my role in the group as far as lyrics are concerned. Don't let the movie fool you about my contribution to the group." The conflict was made all the more complicated by the fact that the film's main producers were his former bandmates, Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, along with Eazy-E's widow, Tamika Woods Wright. Ren was, in effect, publicly challenging their version of events. He was fighting against a narrative crafted by the two members who had achieved the greatest mainstream success, giving them immense power to shape how N.W.A.'s story would be told to a new generation. His struggle was against being reduced to a footnote in a history he had been instrumental in writing. Further fueling his frustration were specific historical inaccuracies in the film. Ren publicly stated that a pivotal scene in which Jerry Heller confronts and stands up to harassing police officers outside their recording studio was a complete fabrication. This scene was likely included to add dramatic tension and perhaps to present a more balanced view of Heller's character. However, for Ren, it was further proof that the film was a sanitized, whitewashed version of events that prioritized myth-making over the truth. MC Ren's final and most enduring feud is not with a person or a group, but with an idea, current state of mainstream hip-hop. And that's number one on the list. In his role as an elder statesman of gangsta rap, he has become a vocal critic of the cultural shifts within the genre, waging a philosophical battle against what he perceives as a decline in authenticity, lyrical skill, and substance. This is not the bitter complaint of an artist left behind by time, but a passionate defense of the foundational principles of the art form he helped to build. In numerous interviews, Ren has bluntly stated his belief that the rap game went soft. He laments the modern industry's preference for radio-friendly type shit and dancing shit over the raw, confrontational reality rap that N.W.A. championed. He sees a landscape dominated by music designed for commercial appeal rather than for telling authentic stories, a betrayal of the genre's original purpose. At the heart of his critique is a sharp distinction he draws between a true MC and a mere rapper. For Ren, an MC is a master of the craft, someone who possesses a unique style, a compelling cadence, and the ability to use their voice like an instrument to move an audience. A rapper, in his view, just raps, often lacking in lyrical depth, clever metaphors, and the technical skill that defines true artistry. This distinction is a direct challenge to a generation of artists he feels have prioritized image and melody over the core element of lyricism. He is also deeply critical of the pervasive materialism in modern hip-hop lyrics. Ren argues that during the hip-hop golden era, the focus was on storytelling and self-expression, not on endlessly boasting about wealth. When he was asked in an interview who back then was talking about money like they talk about it today, his response was nobody. He views the constant fixation on money, cars, and champagne as a sign of artistic immaturity and a departure from the more substantive social commentary that once defined the genre. Finally, Ren has expressed disappointment in the modern hip-hop fanbase, which he finds fickle compared to the loyal audiences in rock music who support artists for decades. He believes this cycle of fleeting fame is partly due to a lack of historical knowledge among new artists and listeners. He argues that many new rappers fail to achieve lasting success because they don't know their history and don't pay proper respect to the pioneers who paved the way for them. Through his own recent music and his ongoing commentary, MC Ren has positioned himself as a cultural conservator,